Morning. So, just to tell you about everything that happened, week commencing the 3rd of June. 3rd was a good day for us on the Monday. We finally managed to get Mac out of Alder Hey hospital. So he was discharged, got him out roughly about in the afternoon, after lunch. And although he is discharged and he's definitely on the mend, it's certainly going to be a long journey back to full health for him. In terms of his muscle wastage and just his general physical condition is going to be a long, I think a long period before he definitely feels a lot better. He's still getting temperatures and stuff even to today really. So we also managed to tick off one of the things that he wanted to do. So he said that when he got out of hospital he wanted to go for a KFC. There wasn't one very far actually from Alder Hey, just kind of up the road. So we went there. I actually had a rice box, which was really nice. It was one of these ones that's, I think it was under 500 calories, but it was just so good. So I think that's probably my new favourite piece of junk food, I would say. Junk food that's supposed to be healthy, but it was, really filling, like rice, the salad, I don't know, some kind of chutney or something along those lines, but like a hot sauce, and then the zinger chicken fillets. Just really, really nice. So we were supposed to also, on the purchase of the house, supposed to have the completion date agreed, or what was proposed for being the 15th of July. So also got home, first day for Lucy starting off at work, so I swung, got home about 3 o'clock, 3:30. Went into work, said hello to everyone. No sign of Lucy actually. They were out doing some filming at Barron's Quay, so I went down and met her there and the other guys. They were just doing some filming of them eating some pizza in Wildwood. Managed to pick up the tab for them, which was good. And that was good. The desk prototype that we're building on Monday, the guys got some wood together to put the top of it on. So we had just like the scaffold legs for now. So that started to look more like a real physical desk. They've bought some floor, I can only describe it as Tonga groove floorboards from Wicks. So Tuesday the guys continued on with building the desk. They put the front panel on, which is, you could call it a vanity board if you want to call it like that. So it goes from top to bottom, give a big area for branding if we wanted to. Also build the second higher up level, so the desk is split level. You've got the normal desk height area, then you've got like a half width higher area, so you can put monitors on it, and so you can box it in and put things like all the plugs and whatever are higher up and easier to access, but they're also screened off. Most people seem to like it. I think there's only really Bev who's got any opinions that are negative. That's saying there's no intention for Bev to actually change her desk other than to go to a traditional desk, but maybe one of the other ones. So it doesn't really matter on that one. So Wednesday, Rich came back from holiday, he'd been away, and we moved his desk. So I had him facing kind of like outwards towards the wall, and kind of with his back to everybody else, but only really so that he could see across into where Elliot and those guys live on a diagonal. But it's just funny because I thought he'd feel a bit funny with people like walking behind him. There's a corridor that leads to going out, and I thought, it's going to feel weird having people behind him. But it turns out that he'd prefer that, and to be able to see the other guys that were in his team. So it just goes to show you that it's maybe not as well to make decisions for other people as to what's the best seating position for them. So it wasn't too bad. That kind of like filtered through to me, and as soon as I heard it out, I just went straight out there and we moved the desk around. His actual PC's making some kind of strange, crazy noise now with the fan. Not quite sure why. It sounds like it could do with being oiled or something. So it is what it is. The guys are still working on the prototype of the desk on the Wednesday, so they stained it. It doesn't stained it, put some cupboards underneath. Cupboards were built kind of like the wrong size, but they're giving an indication of how much room you'd have for your legs, or kind of like your knees either side, and that doesn't stain. The stain definitely works, but it's certainly not the right colour. It was like a light oak. I mean, it looks just like it does on the tin, but when you look at it in the hole, it doesn't look good. And we built some sides and what have you. And I don't know, it just kind of feels over. It doesn't look as clean and simple. So you have to build. You know, if we're going to do these desks, then they need to be right. So although they've spent all this time building a front and a side, they're actually going to have to saw the bottom half, so kind of like below the desktop level, just underneath the line. That front panel is going to have to come off, and that's going to mean that you can see things like the back of the cupboards, and you'll be able to see people's legs, but people will be able to put the feet through the other side, which I think is going to be a good thing. A lot of people like this idea of having a bar that they can actually rest the feet on, which is something which was a positive that I didn't see coming. Still in the process of debating with when now we've got like what appears to be a firmer completion date of the 15th, looking about when we can move the home and also the business. When wants to kind of move it end of August. I'm more for moving it end of July if we can. Just on the basis that I just don't see the point of spending another month's worth of rent in the business centre when that money could be put towards being in the put towards the actual rent of being in Witsend. Otherwise we're paying double. So the sooner we move in, the better, in my opinion. That said, we do need enough time to be able to do it, because there's all kinds of stuff that need to be done. So need to also on the desks need to be looking at kind of the cost for the woods, because the timber costs are going up. The metal element of it's about £100, something along those lines. So yeah, still a lot more to be done on that. Thursday, Mac's been home all this week. Thursday was his first actual exam from home, so the school have sent round and invigilating. He did the exam in the dining room through there, so there's marks on the front door saying do not ring, there's an exam in progress and what have you. And the school have been absolutely brilliant, so supportive in doing in being able to sit the papers at home. I mean, he genuinely isn't well enough to be doing those things. He's getting still quite upset, I would say, in terms of just feeling the stress, but also just not feeling well. So he's still having temperatures. He's going to be on antibiotics for another 2 weeks to get the infection down to nothing. So he's still, as poorly as if you had something like a flu or a cold or something along those lines in terms of the levels of infection. So Friday, it was a day that I was kind of dreading actually in some ways, because I had a lot of stuff that needed doing, and again, I was having to do things like take the dogs out because Mac had another exam, because we can't have the dogs going crazy. So took them to doggy daycare, and then went to Liverpool to do a course which was Leaders in Health and Safety and IOSH course. which is interesting. Sometimes I don't know how much these courses cost, but sometimes I do wonder, if what the value of it's there for. Although, I don't know, it's definitely increased the awareness, but because I'm doing these courses anyway, a lot of the things that they talk about are the same topics. So maybe it's aimed to, it's supposed to be aimed at people who are directors and owners of companies and what have you, and them to understand the legalities and what they have. So one of the questions that I think they always talk about is they just say that business owners can be sent to jail and all the rest of it, which is very, very true. They can do that. And I actually asked him, I said, well, so just how many directors have been sent to jail? And he said, well, since the start, 77, but until 2 years ago, that figure was something like 12 or something. So definitely it's on the rise. In the last 2 years, a further 50 people have been sent to jail for it. Not that I'm looking to dodge it, I just want things to be as safe as they possibly can. I mean, on Thursday and Friday, Rob and Aidan were out. They were training to do a petroleum forecourt health and safety passport, which means that they are qualified to work on a forecourt, which again is something that will promote, I think, over social as much as anything else. And it's just that ongoing investment in training. I think even Witsend, I think we must have the most well-trained staff now in terms of health and safety and and that kind of thing, which is good. It's one thing that I would say which is a definite positive for all this is when we had a lead, or Aidan brought in a lead for us to go and do some signage at a client that he used to do work for, Frank Roberts Bakery, and when they sent through the proper forms in terms of all the health and safety and what have you, we were able to, or Emily was able to answer all the questions that are on there and then give them all the supporting paperwork. I mean, goodness knows how Aidan managed to fill all that in, or how they did that. But the bottom line is, we're in a position now where if anybody does ask us for things like our health and safety policy and all the rest of it, then all those figures and all the paperwork's all in place now. So pretty straightforward. So it was good. Anyway, back to the actual physical course. Although the course itself was something that was a usual kind of health and safety content, what was interesting was out of the 6 people who were on the course, there was a guy there. There's a private company that looks after all the frontline services for Liverpool. It's called LSSL, and there was 3 of the 6 people, one of which was me on the course, were from LSL, and they're a company that's maybe a private company that looks after things like emptying the bins and what have you. But the chap who was there, sat next to me, is called Ron, and he was the director for the actual company. That the people who were going to the course weren't even aware that he was actually going there and hadn't even met him, which was funny to see. But yeah, really, really nice chap. Connected with him on LinkedIn, so we'll see whether there's any, if we end up doing something for those guys, that will be certainly interesting and would certainly offset the cost of going on the course. Certainly really very, very interesting chap. He'd done lots of things, including putting the bid proposal for Liverpool to do the Commonwealth Games and that kind of thing. Yeah, totally nice guy. Friday, and we were wrapping up the final pieces of paperwork that were required for the house sale, including the NHBC for this, which we thought we actually had, but it was only turned out it was a cover note, and the builders and the solicitors that were involved in the purchase of Ashgrove House had never actually properly applied for the NHBC certificate, because it was just there lying dormant with the NHBC. But they, fair play to them, they were all over it. We just had to give them a few bits of details, things like exchange date and value of house and stuff. And they sent over the actual certificate for it, so that was good. Mac had another exam on Friday. Girls got some. The dogs got the trims. They're all looking nice and neat now. They look a bit more like, rather than mobile hearth rugs, if you want to call them that, they now look more like seals with beards, which is cool. Saturday and Sunday is karting weekend. Saturday the weather was absolutely atrocious. It was freezing cold to the point where you can see your breath in front of you. Raining, just miserable weather. Got home totally exhausted. I'm not sure what it is that tires me out, whether it's the lifting the cart on off or just being out in the fresh air. I couldn't tell you what it is, but I always feel completely zonked when I came home. Had plans to watch things like, I think Wendy and we were watching Chernobyl, which is really good, and also starting to watch In the Line of Fire, which is supposed to be a good series. And to be able to do that, I thought I'd just have a little bit of a nap, to put it on for 18 minutes to wake me up. But although I was stretched out on the couch, when the alarm went off for 18 minutes and it was beeping away, I literally couldn't wake up enough to turn the alarm off, and in the end the alarm just completely went off, and I think woke up about an hour later. Sunday was interesting again. Another second day for the karting. It was very competitive in terms of the karting this time around for Broads. So he was maybe fifth fastest on the kart. I'm not sure whether it's Brody's driving, or I think it's actually more to do with the kart. Come the end of it, they took the engine apart, had a look at the piston ring, and they were also talking about maybe changing the diaphragm in the carburettor or something along the lines. He'd also had a new set of tyres. So certainly an expensive weekend, so much so that I said to Dave, well, you're just going to have to text me the bill so I can sort it out later on. He ended up finishing 4th or 5th, but it was quite funny in the last round of the qualifying heats. Although there was a lad who led the race, who's definitely the quickest. There's two brothers. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're the Fernandez kids. One of them's called, maybe something like, I don't know, like one of them's called Romeo, and I think maybe the other one might be called, I don't know, Cruz. Yeah, I think it's Cruz or something like that. So draw your own conclusions. But I mean, they are quick. Both the lads are quick, but both of them had slid off, and Broads was being like chased down, and the lad was like, he's definitely got a super quick car. He's probably about half a second quicker than everybody else, to a second quicker than everybody else around the track. And he was like closing down on Broads, and to the point where when he came around the final bend as they're coming into the last straight, he didn't have enough power to overtake Broads. But because of where he's put like the transponder that measures where he starts and finishes in the car, his transponder's in the nose cone and ours is behind the seat where they have to be for MSA. So it showed that he finished ahead of him, so Broads was not happy with that. And then in the final, Broads finished 5th, but there was another thing where the lad who was in 16th place overtook him on a yellow flag, which you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to slow down and, you know, stay in your orders. So again, Broads was like fuming over that. But on a positive note, it did mean that we could get away, which is quite good, with it being my birthday and stuff like that. Went to see my mum and dad with Broads on the way home. Had a quick coffee in there. What did I get from the birthday? Ended up with a tower of chocolate oranges, so I think I've got 7 chocolate oranges, which is nice, 4 of which are from mum and dad, because I do like chocolate oranges. And got a couple of nice shirts, which is good. Got some whiskey, which is great, always goes down well, and cards and stuff like that. Sunday in the evening was supposed to have what I would classify as a romantic evening with Wend. Unfortunately, I fell asleep again, so we made a nice meal, what I would classify as a treat tea for me. So it was chips, beans and pies, which is kind of like the favourite kind of traditional pub food that I like, is my favourite food. So I had that, some Prosecco and probably partial glass of wine or something like that, and I was completely done then. I think I fell asleep about 8 o'clock and just managed to wake up enough after the guys had watched Game of Thrones to be able to stagger upstairs, kind of make a half-hearted effort to clean my teeth, and then to climb into bed, just completely done in. Such are the joys of karting. So yeah, here we go, end of one week and beginning of the next. So until next week, thanks for listening.